Evening all. Apologies yet again from, as Paul says in the chat, Endless waiting for Endless Celts. It seems to be a weekly occurrence at the moment, so apologies for that. But thanks for joining us on a Friday night, spending your Friday night with us. Hopefully you've got a couple of beers. And we're going to talk all things Celtic this week. I'm joined by Gavin. How we doing, mate? How's your week been?
Aye, mate. It's been a no bad week. Happy we've made it to Friday. I've got the weigh-in for the entire weekend, so like you work all week, you look forward to the weekend, then you're on babysitting duties for 4 days straight. It's not the greatest reward, but you know, such is life.
Fatherhood. James, how are you doing, mate? How's your weekend? How's your week been, and what's the plans for the weekend ahead?
Aye, all good, mate. Just been working away and get Celtic coming up to dampen my mood this weekend, no doubt. So normal service has resumed again. So
aye, absolutely. Thanks everybody that's joining us. I would bring you all up on the chat, but you are just absolutely pacing us for being late again. But thanks for joining us, Alistair, San Fran, Paul McFarlane, Dion, Monty. Thanks for joining us again. Hopefully you've got a couple of beers in hand, and we'll just get stuck right in. You've not got any fancy wee intro today because it didn't upload properly, so unfortunately we've not got that, but we've got the topics in hand, so we'll just get right in ahead. And the first thing I want to dive into, Gavin, is the sort of constructions began at Barrowfield for the new training complex. What's your thoughts? Is it a matter of the timing's not been great because what's happening on the pitch? People haven't been really getting too excited about what's happening, and what do you think about the sort of images we've seen and how it's going to benefit us in the long run?
Well, I think firstly it should have been done a long time ago. We've heard so many stories about us buying players and they rock up to Parkhead and we try not to make them aware of Barrowfield, you know. They're thinking there's the training facilities. Barrowfield was a source of shame, for want of a better word. Obviously, we've got Lennoxtown now, but Barrowfield itself, it still serves a purpose. Training facilities for the women's team, the B team, the academy itself. So, yeah, it's long overdue. At the same time, it's a pain in the arse for them having to play up in Airdrie. I don't think, depending where you live and what part of Scotland you are, you know, it's a bit of a pain in the arse having to trek there. It would be nice if they could actually play their games at Barrowfield, if they were able to build like a pitch with like seating for a couple of thousand. But again, we know that we are kind of averse to spending too much money. I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to kind of undercut the cost for Barrowfield anyway. The other thing is, like, I've heard stories that for driving to Lennoxtown, let's see it in the winter, sometimes like with the heavy snow, sometimes it's almost inaccessible if you're heading up that way. And I know that sometimes Celtic players have had to actually train on Celtic Park on those occasions. So I guess that this will be something that they'll be able to utilise, you know, because you've got the training pitch with the roof. So that'll be something as well. I guess it's nice, but at the same time, we're a wee bit cynical because we're releasing our financial records and stuff like that. And then this is maybe a kind of a wee switcheroo to say, oh, look what we've done. So, yeah, I'm not going to be too downhearted about it. It's something nice, but definitely long overdue.
Yeah, absolutely. Monty's in. Read you like a book, mate. Straight in with the board reflection. Don't want to yawn. That's coming again. Don't worry, that's coming later on. We've got other stuff to talk about as well, Monty. So, Gavin, do you think it's a bit? I just got to come back to you, just ask you about the whole, like, just because of the situation we're in at the moment. Do you think that if we were flying high and, you know, still going for a treble or whatever, the excitement would be a bit more about this? Because, like, I feel like a lot of people and fans talk about our youth system and how it's literally non-existent, and we need to bring. We need to get back to that and try and be bringing quality through our youth. And surely this is like a big stepping stone towards that with the better facilities. Do you think it's a bit like obviously the timing isn't it's happening now, so that's why they've released it. Do you think that if we were in a different situation with the first team and in the season now, that there'd be a different reaction to it going on? Do you think there's been just a bit of backlash, i.e., why the fuck are we getting training grounds when the first team's doing yada yada yada?
Yeah, I think context is everything, especially for football fans. Our emotions, especially this season, have been up and down. So whenever things are not going well for us on the field, then we're going to be very, very critical. We're going to be very judgmental of particular news. So yeah, if it was a different kind of backdrop, if this was a really successful season, such as last season, and we announced this news, then I think it would have been met with more positivity. The board could probably have predicted a lot of people's reaction to this. It's a positive in a way. Like I guess, let's see if you're a father and you've got a child who's going to play for Celtic or part of the Celtic Academy, and you've got these sort of facilities, then it's something to it will impress people. You know, it will reassure people that this might be the place to allow your children to develop, rather than go to another club where you might think that there's a better pathway to the first team. If you've got those training facilities at Barrowfield, then it will certainly impress, and it enhances our reputation to an extent as well. So I think context is everything. With the backdrop of the negativity this season, it certainly affects people's reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. James, are you in that camp where it's you sort of think that the first team's in a bit of a mess now, so this is kind of, I don't know, sort of trying to paper over cracks, or what's your thoughts?
It's needed done. Obviously, the stories about Barrowfield being run down are kind of well known, so it's obviously needed done. But look, I mean, obviously putting it in the context of this season, you can understand why people are raging. The quote I read earlier, was, "The house is on fire, but we're outside painting the shed." And I think that is quite apt. But for me, the issue isn't even that it's Barrowfield or anything like that. It's, if it needs done, it needs done. But I know it's obviously for the youth teams and the women's team as well. But for me, with that money, maybe be better invested in proper youth development in terms of coaches and things like that. I mean, does having a better canteen and a fucking better treadmill to run in, is that going to make better first team players? Really? I mean, because that's what Lennoxtown was for, and you could count in one hand the amount of players that's kind of really come through and obviously been hugely successful through there. So if it needed done, fair enough, but obviously putting it in the context of this season, then I can understand people's frustrations.
James, can I just say one thing? You know how the board, I think it was at the start of this season, or whenever Ange came in, Michael Nicholson said that we want to be top class in all aspects. Now, I know that that's very, very funny now, considering how things have kind of worked out. But does this not go some way to meeting that statement?
Well, to an extent, but it's a conversation we've had many a time, kind of going back the months on the jungle gyms and things like that. The youth development at Celtic in Scotland in general, it's not even just a Celtic thing. It's pretty much non-existent. I mean, you invest all this money, you're not going to get a 17-year-old walking straight into the Celtic first team. So regardless of how much money you pump into Lennoxtown, they're still going to be playing in the Lowland League. Do you know what I mean? They're playing fucking that open goal team, so you're playing against podcasters. We might get a game in it next season, hopefully. So do you know what I mean? So that's the level that you're playing against. So until that gets sorted, and look, that's no entirely a Celtic thing. That's no Celtic's fault. That's no the board's fault. It's just in general in Scotland. Until that improves, then I think it's just no waste of money, because obviously it's for the women's team and that as well, if you're interested in that. But if it needs done, it needs done. But I don't think it's going to make any much difference to the first team, obviously for years anyway. But even as that passes, I think we'll be lucky to see any results for it.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, just having the greatest facilities doesn't necessarily mean you're going to produce better footballers. And I mean, I suppose that can attract, but it's still. I think you're bang on. I think it comes down to more these sort of scouting system. I mean, people's youth players that they're getting, they're still. It's not guys from around their area buying off the street nowadays. In the modern game, we're buying they're buying wonder kids for whatever price at 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old from outside. So I think it's a fair point that that we're talking about the facilities, money going into that, but like I say, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you future prospects. Although like everybody said, it needed done. So I suppose it's a small positive in what's been a lot of negativity around the club at the moment, and and for that, I think, like I said, I think if the circumstances were different and we were still flying at the moment and winning trebles, everybody would be seeing this as a plus. But I think the timing of it just means it's not great news for most. So yeah, Barrowfield's getting built. Like you say, it's not really going to benefit the sort of first team, not for a long time anyway. It's more for the youth and the women's side, and I think that's a fair point Gavin made about Nicholson saying that we want to be like top world class in all areas, and it looks like from the images I've seen, it looks like it's going to be like wonderful facilities. So yeah, small positive. But I seen this week, just moving on, that Michael Stewart, who I respect as a pundit, I think he's quite level-headed. I think he says it like it is. I don't think he's afraid to speak his mind. He's obviously got himself in hot water in the past because of that. And I don't know if you've seen this, but he was on the Scottish Football Podcast, and I'm just going to read out a couple of things he said. He was pretty much talking about how it's a necessity that, I know this is going to cause great debate, so it's a necessity that Celtic need to keep Brendan Rodgers at the helm no matter what happens this season, going into next season. And I'll just read a few quotes that he said. He says, regardless of whether they win the league or not, for me, they need to keep Brendan Rodgers. The big problem for me, even so much, is when we look at Brendan Rodgers now, and he does look like a pale imitation of what we saw before. He's a top manager. The thing that surprises me so much, and we all assumed that to get Brendan back in, it was because they were going to back him heavily. It's been so far the other way that I find it astonishing. So even if they don't win the league, I still think next summer they have to go and do the same thing and back him properly. Now, I'm just going to ask James's thoughts on that and just sit back for half an hour and hear a couple of pints. What do you think about that, mate? Because I know you're obviously quite strongly of the, like, I wouldn't say Rodgers out camp, but you've got your doubts about what's going on, and you've not been too happy with what he's done this season. What do you make of the comments?
Well, to be fair, I was on the fence, but now that Michael Stewart said we need to back Rodgers, then fair enough. No, mate, I'm firmly in the Rodgers out camp now. I said a couple of weeks ago his jacket was on a sugary peg, and I've not seen anything to improve that. Again, his press conference today with the fucking Brendan Rodgers bingo, he spoke about intensity and mentality and being clinical. The same thing he said for months now, and it just doesn't happen. 100% he's been shafted by the board. Of course he has. The amount of players we signed in the summer was a shambles. It should never have been as many. It should have been more quality, as he likes to throw about as well. So he has been shafted in that regard. But in terms of literally every player at the club, I mean, even Rodgers, even O'Reilly's went backwards, but I'll give him benefit of the doubt with O'Reilly. Everybody has regressed, and Brendan Rodgers, for me, is at fault for that. He's playing players in a system that they're not suited to, and it seems to me to be incapable of changing it. The last couple of weeks, I know we've spoke about 4-4-2, and we've had a laugh about Kyogo in the 10 and things like that, but he's no changed the formation. He's put Kyogo in. You'll give him benefit of the doubt. He's changed it. There's two strikers on the park. Whatever formation we're playing, he has changed it. It's worked to an extent without ever being spectacular. But in the two games that we've went that way with Kyogo in there, he's changed it back. The St Mirren game, he brings Bernardo on. The performance took a nosedive pretty much as soon as that happened. Kilmarnock game at the weekend was slightly different. because we, regardless of the way that second half was going, we did need to change something. We couldn't have kept playing the way we were playing. That's no solely Rodgers to blame for that, but his subs, even at the weekend, I mean, I think I actually put in the group chat, we're walking in eggshells here in the second half, and I think that couldn't have been that long into the second half, and it was so apparent that it was coming, and how I don't think there's a fucking supporter, a Celtic supporter on the planet that would have looked at that bench and thought, we need Paolo Bernardo in the park here. It's just miles away from it. The obvious sub was to bring Awata on. If you're bringing Awata on, obviously you're looking to go a wee bit more solid in the middle, which is exactly what we needed. You would take Kyogo off and leave Ida up top. Somebody big, somebody to hit an out ball, essentially, that can bring other players into play. But he doesn't do that. He brings on Bernardo for Ida and then puts Kyogo up front. The game doesn't change in any way, shape or form. If anything, you could argue it gets worse. Then 5-10 minutes later, it's as if, oh shit, he's then seen what everybody else could have seen, and he's brung Owen in place of Kyogo for that focal point. And it's no as if that's a new thing. That might sound harsh in that I'm singling out the Kilmarnock game. It's happened before. Was it the Ross County game? He brought on Bernabe as a winger, only for 5 minutes later for him, he realised he made a cunt of it, and then he had to take Greg Taylor off for a winger and put Bernabe back. And he's tried different things throughout the season. We've had names out of hat to see who plays beside Scales. We've had names out of hat to see who's playing in the midfield beside McGregor and O'Reilly. It's just not happening. And this notion that we're just going to flick a switch and everything will become brilliant again, it's not going to work that way. And look, I know we've had a laugh and a joke because I keep going on about performances, but playing poorly and winning on occasion is a brilliant thing to do. Sign a champions or that pattern, it's excellent. See, when you're relying on it week in, week out, you're just playing poorly. And when you're playing poorly, you're going to slip up. And we've seen it time and time and time again this season that we've slipped up. I've said on here before, the elephant in the room for Celtic this season was Michael Beale. Michael Beale afforded us that gap. They had a glorified PE teacher in charge for however long it was of the season, afforded us that gap. He's then went and they've brought in an actual manager who seems to be getting a tune out the players, and then the gap has shorter and shorter and shorter, and now we find ourselves behind. He was shafted in the summer. He's back to board. He said we needed quality in January. We didn't get it. He then came out after the Ross County game and back to board again. So, as I say, he's constant flip-flopping this season. Hasn't helped it at all. But I, to be fair to him, I kind of, to a point, can understand why he's had to do it. I don't think he's had to do it to the extent that he has done it. But for me, for the team of players that's there, he has to be getting so much better out of them. I mean, I know I'm fucking about 10 minutes into a rant here, but
you're all right.
the wingers, the thing with the wingers, and look, Palma gets absolutely slaughtered, and rightly so. Obviously, gets hooked at half time at the weekend again. See, for me, Palma is by a country mile our best winger, and the reason he's our best winger is because the only player that is suited to the style of play that he's asking for. This cutting inside constantly. I mean, we can have a go at Yang, fucking Tyrio, Forrest, any other Maida. We can have a go at them all for no getting to the byline and want to cut inside. Surely it gets to a point where we've got to realise that that's not the player's choice. That's coming for the dugout. That's coming for the manager. And it's the same thing we've seen all season. And the only one that suits is Palma. And I think I've said it on here before, and it's not even with the benefit of hindsight. I think if everybody was available and actually at the club, our best two wingers, our starting wingers, would be Palma and Haksabanovic. And that's no saying Haksabanovic is a brilliant player. It's just the fact that he's the only one that's suited to this cutting inside and shooting. And look, I agree, Palma has been terrible recently, but about 95% of our attacks come through Palma when he's playing. Good, bad, or indifferent, it goes through Palma. He's always heavily involved. And at the other side, there is nothing. Genuinely, absolutely nothing. I mean, you look at the game at the weekend, I know it's been kind of well winter, but like there's a bit where Yang gets the ball at the halfway line. He's got the full park in front of him, passes it to McGregor. McGregor doesn't want the ball either, passes it to O'Reilly. Like that. Is somebody going to just take, to quote Charlie Nicholas, is somebody going to take the bull by the China shop here and actually drive us forward? And to get back onto Rodgers again, like this time last week, he was telling us that it was all negative media spin. There was no issues. Everything was rosy at Celtic. No need to panic. Fast forward 48 hours, you've got players telling us they're having crisis meetings in the dugouts, and the dressing rooms. So there's a clear disconnect somewhere. And look, I know I'm fucking torn-faced and moany, entitled, bedwetter, whatever you want to call it. I just don't think we're anywhere near the level we should and could be this year. For me, it's been like watching a car crash in slow motion. And if I'm being honest, I don't think we're at the end of it yet. I think we're still got worse to come. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But just to conclude and answer your question, yes, I'm in the Rodgers out camp.
Let me just go through. I just want to go through a couple of the comments here. Monty, everyone is responsible for the team's inconsistencies. The manager needs to find a formation and get the players fired up. That said, individually and collectively, the players need to wake up.
I agree with that.
Aye, me too. For a change, I agree with Monty. Michael Ross says, can Rodgers motivate these players? What do you think? In fact, before I go on, get some more comments, Gavin, I just want to see, because I seen you, it looked like you might be disagreeing on the Palmer situation there. What's your thoughts on what James said there about Palmer and him being our best winger? And do you think he's got a point about how he's the only one that can, he's the only one that sort of suits what Brendan's, or what he thinks that Brendan's implementing at the moment?
Palmer's, it's really difficult to put your finger on what the problem is with Palmer. He had a really, really promising start to the Celtic career. You know, he looked like finally this is one signing that we can hang our hat on. But he's been caught up with whatever contagious thing is going through the squad right now, where he's went down to everybody else's level. So in the last game, he gets hooked at halftime. In the opening 5 or 6 minutes, there was 3 times where he had donkey moments. The first opportunity, the ball was played to him in the middle of the park. He never had a picture in his head of what he was going to do, and he took a really terrible touch, and it goes to the opposition, and we're on the back foot. There was another one a couple of minutes later where the ball was played to him, and it goes under his foot. There's no excuse for that. You need to start off the game confident and firing on all cylinders, and to put the opposition under pressure. So I don't want to I know that it sounds like I'm micro-analysing Palmer already, but he's a conundrum. Like, he's got obvious talent, but at the same time, he's capable of trying to overcomplicate things. He doesn't do the simple things well. And if you're having a crisis of confidence, then stick to the simple things. You know, get your touch right, know what you're going to do, pass to your man, make a run, make space. He's got obvious flaws with a lack of pace. And saying that, in the St Mirren game, he managed to fashion half a yard to get past a man to whip in that cross. So it's not like you need to do a Didi Regat and run down to the byline, you know, to cross it in. Palmer does have that skill, kind of like Aidan McGeady to an extent. Well, he wasn't blessed with pace, but he was always able to fashion a yard to whip in a corner. Palmer is capable of that. He needs to mix his game up, which is something that Rodgers told him at the start. Don't always telegraph your intentions. He needs to keep the fullback thinking of what he's going to do. But sometimes Palmer, when he's had the opportunity to cross the ball, it has been like Myra-esque. It's been woeful. And I don't want to kind of over-egg the pudding here. I don't want to go too far, but his end product at the start of his career, it looked brilliant, but now it is erratic. You don't know what you're going to get with Palmer. Unfortunately, it's more misses than hits with Palmer right now. James does make the point that Palmer's style is suited to what Brendan Rodgers is asking of him, but at the same time he's getting hooked at half time. So the other thing I was kind of talking to you guys in the group chat is, does Palmer benefit from playing off players? So with Kyogo as your focal point, is that not suited to him? Well, now we're trying with Ida. Is that really bringing the best out of Palmer? I don't think so. Maybe he's not getting. I don't think Palmer's developed a chemistry. Put it that way, he's not developed a chemistry on the left wing with his fullback. The fullback has been changing, with Greg Taylor's injury. Greg Taylor doesn't know Palmer's game. Palmer doesn't know Greg Taylor's game. I think it might be next season before we can make a fully fledged opinion about Palmer. So that's my opinion about Palmer. I know that the bigger question is Rodgers. Should he stay or should he go?
Yeah. I'm just going to go back. I want to hear your opinion on Michael Stewart's comments, Gavin, but I just want to ask James. So, obviously, I think it depends on the football, but say we continue to play this lackluster football that we're playing recently, but he wins the league. Does Rodgers still need to go?
No, probably no. If he wins the league, I don't think he will. If I'm being totally honest, I don't think he will. Maybe that's a wee bit defeatist, but I mean, you have known how much I've been moaning since pretty much August, September time. If I'm being totally honest, unless something drastically changes, and look, if something drastically changes, I'll be the first one to come on here, hold my hands up and go, what was that guy talking about? But I just don't see it changing. I don't think he knows how to change it. I think he's tried to change it at points and always revert it back. And I just don't, like, the players aren't great either, but again, he's defended the recruitment, so he's kind of made a rod for his own back with that. If he wins the league, then I think he stays. I don't think he'll get sacked. I think there's a notion that he could potentially walk away in the summer, regardless if he doesn't get backed. But I mean, in terms of him getting sacked, I don't think he'll get sacked anyway. But definitely no if he wins the league.
Aye, that's a fair point. This is what I was going to ask you next. Actually, the manager needs backed. Red Scotland, thanks for joining us tonight, mate. The manager needs back before we can judge him on his side. Players need to stand up and be counted. The board, they just need to go. So before I ask you, Gavin, on like Michael Stewart's comments and what you think about Rodgers, do you think that he's got some credit in the bank just because the sort of window was such a disaster in most people's eyes, and there's a sort of backlash on the board? Do you think that he's got some sort of credit in the bank because of that?
From some quarters of the Celtic support, it's not a unanimous one. I think Monty was spot on with his earlier comment. Well, everybody needs to take accountability, from the board to the players to Hoopy. Everybody is accountable for this. So Rodgers does have credit in the bank, firstly because of his reputation. People thought that he was a safe choice whenever we got him. Other people would say that it was a lack of imagination, a lack of moving forward. But now he's been kind of hamstrung with the recruitment. Now, I know that James said that publicly he's backed it. He said that I have say in the transfer rumours. On the other hand, though, is he going to start consternation in the media by saying that he never signed off on these guys, that they're not good enough? That's really one way to end your season, to end your career. I don't think that you're in it. We need to make the best of a bad situation, and I don't think that there was any yield for Rodgers to come out, any reward for Rodgers to come out and lambast the recruitment. So he's had to kind of stand by it and say that we're a collective.
Do you think Gavin, do you think he half sort of said that when he kind of came out? Remember, he hadn't made that big statement about how the recruitment team are the ones that bring the player to him, and then he kind of has his say. Do you think he was kind of half saying it then, or do you think he was? It's difficult because I know James has said that he understands why he said certain things, and he's sort of flip-flopping because he feels like he needs to try and get fans back on side because of what's happened previously. But I don't know. For me, I remember that comment coming through, and obviously it looks worse when you read it. But then when I watched his interview, and he was kind of saying like, It was during the summer window anyway, and he was sort of saying like the recruitment is they come in and I'm here to coach and develop. I don't know if for me it was kind of like at that point he was saying that he was basically saying that without saying it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he name dropped the recruitment team. In the same time, the following sentence, he protected them, and he said it's a collective. So yeah, mixed messages from Rodgers. So yeah. He does have credit in the bank from some people. It's not like he spent a ridiculous amount of money on duds in the January market. We've brought in Kuhn, and Kuhn has been deplorable. He looks like that. The goal that we conceded in stoppage time, Kuhn is not tracking back, and his marker, the left winger, was the one who was left open to cross it in. If Kuhn tracked back, then that goal might not have happened. So although Bernabe was a scapegoat for that, Kuhn is culpable equally as well. The recruitment in January has been awful. And what can you say, though? People say that it's difficult to bring in proper signings. The main business, the main body of work should have been done in the summer. And then we were always playing catch-up in January. And historically, it's difficult. It's difficult to make the proper signings that you want in January.
Can I just jump in on that?
See
what you're saying there. I get you're saying about Rodgers flip-flopping and maybe still having credit in the bank. Brendan Rodgers spoke for months, weeks and weeks, a good couple of months about in the run-up to January about this need for quality. Look, we signed Norwich's third-choice striker. Regardless of how good, bad or indifferent he's playing, he's not a quality player. Nicholas Kuhn, I was never kind of championing that signing. I always felt as if his best kind of selling point was that two big academies had let him go, and it was at Ajax and Bayern Munich, and I never really understood the kind of thought process behind that. But fair play, as I say, I didn't write the guy off early. You've got to give him a chance, but it's clear, at least after what we've seen, that the both of them aren't going to be the answer long term unless there's some miraculous shift. Rodgers came out after the Ross County game. Bearing in mind, obviously, we won the Ross County game. We get booed off the park, and then I think that was actually still in the transfer window. I think there was still a couple of days left. I could be wrong in that one, but that was the interview where after the game, Rodgers said that he got asked about the booing, and he said, "I've had it since I came back. If it's no me, it's getting it. Then it's the board." And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, "Well, you've just given the green light to shaft you." I'm like, "You're sticking up for them, but you're literally in a transfer window where you've spoke for months about needing quality." To that point, in my opinion, he didn't have the quality. I think we would all agree that we never signed quality. I think there's a fair argument to be made that we've actually weakened the team in January. But then he's coming out when we're still in the transfer window and saying, "Oh, well, if they're not booing me, then they're booing the board." And see if I'm sitting in the boardroom fucking counting the pennies, I'm like, what's he doing sticking up for us? We've seen it with the Shved thing, and we've seen it since. And I can't get the mindset of when the window's open, albeit a couple of days left, surely that's when you throw your shade at the board to get them to kick into overdrive and sign somebody. And then in that scenario, I can side with you. You've said we needed something and we haven't got it. Don't defend them. And then the week after the window shuts, come out and tell us that we need to be a wee bit braver, which is his quote. And player recruitment, it's just so backwards. And there's been instances like that all throughout the season where he says one thing one week and then literally the next week he'll say the exact opposite thing. So he speaks about quality. He doesn't get quality. The window's still open to sign said quality. Defends the board. The window shuts. We haven't signed the quality. Week later, we need to be braver in the market. I'm like, in what world does that make sense?
James, you're spot on with what you say. You really, really are. It's difficult to disagree with you. I guess that's in response to my point about, well, make the best of a bad situation. Don't start turmoil within the club when we've got half a season to go. So look, that's a fitting response to what I've said. I guess the only thing that I would say to follow up on that is, if you've got half a season to go and things have not been working well for you on the pitch and you're struggling to find a rhythm, to find a formula, would it help you? Would it help the squad if you basically admitted that what you've got right now is subpar? If you basically put out the messages that the players that you've got are not good enough for Celtic, how will that have an effect on the players in the run-up to the season? I just think perhaps that would be counterproductive, even though Rodgers might be seething. I'm not trying to defend him. I agree with you. I preferred Ange's style, where Ange was not afraid of making it well and clear his thoughts, because he wanted to win the league. He wanted the best for the club, for the team, for the fans, and he was willing to be a straight shooter. Brendan Rodgers mixed messages. I get you. I just, my point though is, we've got half a season and we're up against it. Does it help us if he's basically saying what I've got right now is not good enough to win the league?
But is he not? See, Gavin, is he not? See, when he's banging on every other week about we need quality in the squad. Do you not think that is demotivating the team? Because if I'm a player and he keeps saying we need quality in the squad, I'm possibly sitting there thinking, maybe does that mean I'm not good enough to win the league?
Well, that was pre-window, and I'm talking about now post-window. If he makes comments now post-window that what we've got is not good enough, then I think that's counterproductive, because you need to galvanise the squad. But I think he had every right pre-window to say we need quality.
You think that's why we're in the spot we're in now? Do you think that, James? Do you think that's demotivating the squad? Because obviously the majority of the squad that's here was before January. So before or post January, that if he's saying that, does that mean that majority of that squad aren't good enough?
Mate,
bearing in mind as well, by the way, that the majority of that squad is a treble-winning squad.
100%. And look, Alistair Johnson looks a totally different player. You could argue Callum McGregor looks a totally different player. Matt O'Reilly was one of the only ones that's improved, but he's actually declined since January. Now, obviously, there might be other reasons playing into that, but I agree with what you're saying. When he's saying about the quality, if I'm sitting in the dressing room, I'm like, well, is he speaking about me kind of type thing? And then the two guys he brings in, like, imagine if you're Kyogo, you're sitting there, you've banged in the goals last year, been phenomenal. The manager's talking about quality, then goes out and signs a striker that's the third choice for Norwich. What is he sitting thinking? I'm like, oh, that's no fucking harm either, but it's the truth, isn't it? And I've made, honestly, as I say, like, even before the window opened, and as I say, we've had a laugh on here about it, fucking negative Nancy out here and all that, but we've sleptwalk into this position. If I'm being totally honest, I think January, and look, maybe I'm, as I said in the group chat, maybe I'm a wee bit further ahead in the stages of grief than other people are now. But for me, I think January was our last chance to go out and go, right, we're in a title race here. We need to go out, buy a couple of players in and win the league. This notion about quality, look, you're signing players in the summer with the idea of kicking on in Europe and having a go to the Champions League. We were only in the Champions League in January and we were buying in a title race. Just sign players in January to get us over the line in the league. Guys like Miovski, who will score goals probably in this team, and arguably the goals would help get us over the line. But we dicked about and we didn't do it, as we've done, as I say, fucking pretty much all season. We're just expecting to click our fingers and we're going to go on a run. And it's just blind faith. There is no logic behind it. I keep seeing how bad they are and how they're going to go on a bad run. And look, they might, but I still don't have any faith in us to put a run together. If I'm in my heart of hearts talking even about the weekend, I think that is going to be a right hard game for us. You'd be a brave man to bet Celtic the now in any game. And we've played all the draws at the bottom of the league. We've played all the draws at the bottom of the league at Parkhead, and we're struggling. And as I say, the performances, barring a couple, it's been shite all season. It was shite before January and it's been shite after January. He's been shafted for above, absolutely. But he doesn't help himself. And that's just taking his word on things. I mean, you look at the players, as I say, they've all regressed. So that's why, for me, and look, maybe it is a bit fucking dramatic, but I think the best chance we've got of winning this league is to get somebody else in and hopefully get that kind of new manager bounce. I just don't, and as I say, look, maybe that's controversial and dramatic or whatever, but I just don't see where we're going to snap our fingers and all of a sudden Kyogo's going to be like the old Kyogo. The wingers are going to play like wingers, get to the byline, get the balls in for Kyogo. It's not happened all season, so why is it going to happen now we're chasing?
Aye, it's a fair point, mate. I'm going to say the exact opposite, and it's just with Dion. Thanks for joining us again. I've seen you been in the comments a lot recently, so really appreciate it. But Dion says, Willie, you told us not to worry last week. Should we be worried now? And I totally get it. James has nailed a lot of valid points there. I'm not quite at panic stations yet. And maybe it is, like James said, maybe it's because I don't believe that the team across the city are a good side. I'm not so sure they're going to keep that up. Not that they should need to. And I do think Rodgers should definitely be getting more out of this squad. And maybe I think because he's got credit at the bank because he's CV and what he's done at us before, and maybe I'm a bit of a romantic in that way, and if it was an unknown, if it was another Ronnie Dahlia came in, I'd probably be in the same camp as James and wanting him out just now. And maybe it is because I think with my heart rather than my head sometimes. But I still believe that a squad's got a lot more in them. Obviously, they've shown that in the past. I'm hoping they're going to change it around. Maybe it is absolute blind faith. But for me, I'm not at panic stations quite yet. In about 2 or 3 weeks, if we continue going the way we have been, I'll probably start getting to that point. But yeah, I suppose you could be worried. I'm not quite yet, but I mean, hopefully the run of form changes and players get their act together. But Rodgers definitely needs to be getting more out of the squad. But Gavin, finally, eventually, after all that, what's your thoughts on Michael Stewart's comments on Rodgers, and is he the man to lead us next season? Should he still be at the helm if God forbid we don't win the league? What's your thoughts on his comments?
Well, I think if we're to stick with Brendan Rodgers, I think one of the most worrying things, there's been a lot of setbacks this season. One of the most worrying things is that Rodgers has not been able to affect change with the team despite all these setbacks. Like James has said, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion, and that's a good description. But Rodgers, having seen that after interview after interview of saying, he's not been able to change things. Like I said it the last time I was on the pod. Whenever we had St Johnstone before, back in December, I think it was, St Johnstone, we were playing terribly at half-time. He read them the riot act, and then we won 3-1. And after the game, he said that was the most angry he's ever been in his managerial career. Like, if you hear that from a manager, you're thinking, well, Christ, he must have been angry. But where was you, as a Celtic fan, you always expect a reaction. Whenever you play poorly, you expect the following game to see a reaction. And we've not really seen that. If Rodgers truly gave them a kick up the arse at half-time, fair enough, they secured the points in that game. But that reaction should continue on. That's the mentality. That's the basic mentality that you expect from Celtic players. So I think in response to this kind of question about sticking with Rodgers for next season, I think it takes a lot of faith as a Celtic fan to be reassured that there's a long-term plan in place in order for us to be kind of resolute in all the face of these setbacks, and believe that sticking with Brendan Rodgers, he will kind of prevail in the end. I think that the relationship that he has with the board is pivotal in this. We're probably correct in the assumption that he was sold a fake bill of goods whenever he started his tenure, second time round as Celtic manager. There's that Latin phrase, caveat emptor, and it's buyer beware. He is, whatever he was told, it's not worked out that way this season. And he really needs to do some soul searching if he really wants to be the Celtic boss next season. From a fan perspective, there's no entertainment. You go to the games now and you're not enjoying it. You're not enjoying it at all. It's like you're talking to the people next to you at the stadium, and it's gallows humour. That's what the banter is, like, and you're watching the passing from the back, and you're like, Christ Almighty, heart attack syndrome. it's been so bad, and he's not been able to find a solution. So at the moment, it's really, really on the fence for me. From one week to the next, I'm saying Brendan has to go, and then the next, I'm thinking, but it's rotten from top to bottom.
Aye.
Really, if we bring in a new manager, put it this way, if we're going to bring in a new manager, what type of backing is he going to have? If Brendan has any clout with the board, if we bring in a new guy with no reputation, no gravitas, how on earth is this guy going to be able to make demands from our board? So who's in the best position of power to demand resources? Perhaps Brendan. The other thing I mentioned it on Monday's podcast was sometimes you get managers who've been in the game for so long, they kind of lose their mojo. Is it possible that Brendan has lost his mojo? I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying it's a question. But to answer your question, from week to week, I am changing my opinion whether to stick with Brendan or whether not to. I think the relationship between him and the board is pivotal in this. So I can't really give you a straight answer. Sorry.
I can't believe after all that you're sitting in the fence, man.
You think that, Gavin, when you're talking about that? Sorry, James, mate. See, when you're just talking about how like the sort of club at the moment, and it doesn't. You never said it doesn't matter who's in charge, but you think it's that sort of. I hope we're not on that like decline where like that Man United have been in. They've had world class manager after world class manager, but because it's been rotten for the top and whatever other aspects of the club, there's no success in the pitch. Is that the sort of similar feeling you get?
It's a good comparison, but the example to kind of disprove that, you could say it's the exception that proves the rule is Ange. Ange had 2 brilliant seasons.
Aye.
Well, us as fans, we had the fire in our belly. We were entertained. We were loving it. So that was the exception. So there are obviously certain things that can happen, certain personnel who are able to affect change. But we like continuity as a club. Going back to Lennon as manager, going back to Brendan as manager. Maybe it's that continuity which does us no good, and that's why we don't see change. We're going back for the same old. How do we expect a different outcome?
Yeah.
See, when you're saying notice, and like this isn't kind of directly picking up on what you're saying, because it's something that I've seen a lot of people saying in a roundabout way. Like you're saying that it's rotten for the top to the bottom. And like I would agree with that. For boardroom level to the literal pitch, which is a riot, it is a disgrace top to bottom. But what's changed for Ange, for Rodgers' first spell, for Lennon? It's all the same faces, just in different places. And it's something that I think more and more we've came to realise as times went on since. Up until the point where Mark Lobel comes in, Ange Postecoglou must have been doing about 12 different jobs at Celtic. I mean, you can't for a second tell us that Kyogo, Maida, Kobayashi wasn't great, but look, all these signings, it was guys that Ange knew, and it was guys that he was obviously aware of, and he's brought them in. Hatate, most of them obviously have been on to be successful. And then you had Mark Lawwell into the equation, and even would it have been Ange's last 2 windies? We didn't really sign great. We signed Alistair Johnson, who was the kind of outlier, but even he looks a shell himself this season. So, and I keep seeing people saying as well, it kind of ties in with what you were saying, is if we sacked Rodgers, then who would this board pick? But people don't realise that it was this board that picked Rodgers, who you're defending. Do you know what I mean? It was this board that picked Ange Postecoglou that we would all have back in a heartbeat. It was this board that picked Brendan Rodgers the first spell. It was this board that picked Neil Lennon to come in and win as a treble. The only kind of poor appointment was Lennon getting the gig full time when he should have walked away after winning the Scottish Cup against Hearts. But we let it run on. So look, I am in absolutely no doubt, and it maybe contradicts myself. If we sack Brendan Rodgers right this second, I have got no doubt this time tomorrow night we would have either Neil Lennon or Gordon Strachan in charge until the end of the season. That's based off absolutely nothing other than that's just what I think. But I find it interesting that people that love Ange still defend Rodgers when, in my opinion, you can't defend him anymore. Loved Rodgers his first spell, and obviously Neil Lennon came in and done a job when Rodgers went away. It's the same guys that would be picking him. So I don't get why. And that's not me defending the board, because I've said on here before, when it gets to the point we're saying, but who would we go for? That's a criticism of the board. That's not a defence of the manager. But I just think it's like a bit of a contradiction when people say that. You can't defend Rodgers, a guy that the board have picked and appointed, and then say, but who would the board go for? Do you know what I mean? It kind of flies in the face of it.
So the point is, but we're doubly fucked either way.
I don't know if it's because like I don't think there's the reason we've got Rodgers in is because there's nobody of like that sort of caliber. There was no other candidates at that sort of caliber, and I still don't think there's that out there that we can attract.
Can I? I'm sorry for interjecting here, but
no, of course.
I know hindsight is a wonderful thing. But Iraola is doing pretty well now with his team, and Maresca. James, I don't know if you've got an update on the football score for Leicester, but Maresca is running away with it. The interesting thing was people kiboshed Maresca because of his brief time with was it Parma or Sampdoria?
Parma was Parma.
But maybe that was just the wrong environment for Maresca to succeed, even though he's Italian. But he's came back to the UK and he's flying. But people say that Rodgers was the best man on paper, but do we overthink the kind of on paper thing? Sometimes thinking outside the box is the right way to kind of progress, and I think we're afraid of that. If we went for our Maresca, if we went for Iraola, and again, this is Harry hindsight talking, because I wasn't overly impressed with their CVs. I was more impressed with Brendan Rodgers as being a sure thing. But sometimes if you think outside the box, if you add context to the man on paper, then sometimes it might actually result in making the right decision for the club in the future.
Do you think the board have not done that just because, like Ronnie, I know he was successful, but he was successful in like a one-horse race, and then in the end he ended up leaving anyway because, well, I don't know if it's because of football we're playing or what or not, or he didn't do enough, but that was that sort of appointment, sort of that thinking out the box that you're saying. Do you think that because of that, then now that like the old enemy are back in the league and it's so important for us to, do you think they're not wanting to take that punt because of that, or?
But is that no exactly what Ange Postecoglou would have been? I mean,
that's true. That's true.
Look,
but then that was what's his face that got him in, wasn't it?
Dominic Mackay.
That was, and he's not there anymore. So, and he didn't last long. Maybe it was because he was thinking out the box, and it wasn't the yes man or the narrative that the board wanted.
But Ange was part of the City group. He was known through that network.
So
that's not a fingerprint of Dominic Mackay to identify him. I would disagree with that particular part. But I think Ange was kind of thinking outside the box. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Once bitten, twice as shy. Maybe you're right.
Aye. I just go through some of the comments here. Strange Love a Doctor makes a great point. Thanks for joining us again, mate. No, you don't panic buy. Everything should be done and dusted by the time a window opens. Couldn't agree more. I don't understand this whole people aren't like these sort of the players should be identified well before the window even opens, which I think is, again, it's nuts that if the rumours are true about Mark Clawell leaving, why would it take so long? We need somebody in that's going to. We should be looking at the summer window right now as we speak, and if it's going to be a new team or a new chief scout or whoever else is in, for me, they should be in at the moment. Red Scotland, I think he touches on kind of what you said, Gavin, about Brendan Rodgers and sort of not wanting to, sort of demotivate the team by slagging whatever in the media. And Red Scotland says if he comes out and says, I've been shafted from upstairs, then immediately loses the dressing room and the whole thing unravels. He's doing it in a manner where he can try and keep us on track. Hence his apparent support of the transfers, which are the players he needs to get us over the line. I think that's a fair point. I'm just going through some of these comments as well. I don't know about that, Paul. If Brendan does like the squad and play some of the B team, but he persists with the money grabbers. Because Paul said that moves me on to the next topic. which is where do we go for here? I think we might have actually covered a lot of this in that sort of 40 minutes there ranting. Gavin, where is it going wrong? Is it Rodgers needs to motivate these players better? Is it what can we do? Is there anybody out there? Paul said about the B team. I mean, I don't think you need to necessarily dive into the B team, although you could. Is there anybody that's not sort of partaking that you think could make? I know I'll come to James and ask him. He's already kind of touched on Awata, but is there anybody in there that you think should be playing that isn't somebody that should be getting a run in the squad and somebody that maybe should be sitting taking a back seat? How does Brett, if you're Brendan Rodgers, how do you try and turn this sort of form around?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? What is it?
Yep.
Is it down to motivating the players? Is it down to tactics? Is it down to personnel? Or is it a combination of all the above? I think one person who perfectly kind of encapsulates the confusion, this dilemma that we've got, is probably Liam Scales. Now, he started off the season, probably the most memorable game was the 1-0 game at Ibrox. Whenever we thought some of us thought we were going to get shafted, we end up winning 1-0, and he gets a man of the match performance whenever his teammate Laga Bielka is shot the bed in that game. Liam Scales, for a good part of the season, was an over-performer, and it was probably because people around him weren't playing as well as what they should have been playing, that we kind of jumped on the Liam Scales bandwagon, and we were saying, look how good this guy is. You know, Brendan Rodgers has improved him. This is what happens whenever you give somebody a run of games, bit confidence, and look at how well they're playing. The other thing I would say is it's really nice to have a left-footed centre-back playing at the left of centre-back.
Yeah.
However, that was then, and now he looks like he's going to be a symbol of our failure for this season if we don't win the league, because it's came into stark focus of how poor his distribution is right now. People are really, really getting annoyed with how poor his passing is. He labours on the ball. He plays the safe passes, and his confidence is kind of withering away here. So he's a perfect example of our season, Liam Scales, starting off well, but getting worse and worse right now. And we're saying we'll get rid of him, put in the Rocky and put in Cameron Carter-Vickers instead. And it's just a shit show right now in that kind of position for him. But how do we retrieve this season? One thing is, if you mark Callum McGregor, as we saw in the last game at Kilmarnock, we can't get around that. So, okay, why don't we try Awata at the number 6 position and push Callum McGregor up? Now, I'm not saying that Awata is a world beater. I don't think he's had enough game time right now for us to make a fair judgment whether he's good enough to be a Celtic player or not good enough. I've got a doubt that he's good enough to be a Celtic player because he's not been given a good run of games right now, and I think that's based on training. I think his training performances would dictate if you deserve a run of games. So it might be a solution. We can try it. By the way, did you just pour a pint of Guinness out of camera there? That was very subtly done. Well done. Yeah, look, I think we can try the Awata thing because I think we need to be brave right now. Whatever we're doing right now is not working. We've got 12 games to win this league. We need to be brave. We need to weigh up the risks of what we're going to do and say, should we go ahead with it? Should we just say, fuck it, let's just try something different? If we keep doing the same thing, then surely that means failure. Surely that means coming second. So why don't we try Awata, and that allows Callum McGregor to spark some of the creativity.
Yeah. I was going to say that to you, mate, with Awata coming in. Do you think that's going to benefit us because McGregor's kind of going to take that number 8 role and drive us forward a bit more?
But don't get me wrong, I've got concerns about Awata in the number 6 because I think you need to be very, very disciplined. You need to have a perfect first touch, and you need to know what your next move is going to be for the next pass, because you're going to get closed down instantly. So I've got concerns about Awata doing that, but I'm happy to take that risk and see what happens. It frees up Callum McGregor. He's not going to be man-marked the way that he would be as a number 6. and then he can try to force games, which we have seen him do, and he can be very, very effective with that. The other thing is O'Reilly right now. If we're dropping Bernardo and Kyogo is playing behind the main striker, then that means that O'Reilly is coming back deeper. The best part of O'Reilly's season, whenever he was playing up ahead of the striker, making the forward runs, he was getting the goals. That's dried up from him. Now, you could say that O'Reilly's form has changed because of the speculation with Madrid, or you could say that O'Reilly's form has been hampered with this change of responsibility in the midfield.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. The other thing, Ida, really is Ida working out for us? Like, he scored 2 penalties, but really, what has he done? What has he done? I'm really not. Maybe Ida offers slightly more than O, who again I don't think is a proper Celtic striker. I think we should get rid of. I am sick to death of these mediocre signings. I would get rid of O, but I don't think. Although Ida might be better than O, is he really giving us a different dynamic? The thing is, if you're going to play Kyogo as a number 9, then the service needs to be spot on from the wingers. Should we revert back to Maeda on the left wing, and maybe try James Forrest again on the right? Fuck, like that sounds desperate. But put it this way, James Forrest, although he doesn't have much pace now, he can still fashion half a yard to get a cross in, and he values possession. James Forrest, he might say, "Oh fuck, I'm going to check or play it back," but he values possession. He doesn't give the ball away needlessly. And James, what's your thoughts?
See, before I come to you, James, I just want to a couple of comments. Maestro 95, thanks for joining us, mate. He's been in the comments all the time now as well. It's good to see. I think he sort of agreeing with you, Gavin, with Scales. About his big Scales is good at defender, but he needs to improve his ball distribution. Taking on players when the game is condensed, somebody has to create a spark. Strange Love, I think, is commenting on your talking about Cal Mack in the middle of the park, I think. Marker of Mack should be expected. Mack should take them for a walk and someone should step into space. There are always solutions. It's a fair point. He's always the one that's coming for the ball. But aye, James, I know everybody's sort of in the comments talking. Maestro says Iwata's decent and solid. Michael Ross says Iwata is disciplined. I know you're an Iwata fan. You'd like to see him in the squad in the first 11. What's your thoughts? How can we turn it around? Is there anybody that you think should be coming in?
I think Iwata should be in the team. That's no even just after the back of recent performances. I like Iwata. I think the best football we've played, thinking back to it, Tynecastle and games like that, or around about that time, probably when we've played our best football. But then the other part of me, the wee kind of money hoff of me, is thinking, well, we're just going full circle here, because we've went through and we've had Nawrocki, manager didn't like him, bombed out. Lagerbielke, manager didn't like him, get bombed out. Bernabe, regardless of how many times people tell me he's not as bad as he is bombed out. Ralston, bombed out. We went through the period where we had O up front, bombed out. Third choice now to a guy that was third choice at Norwich. Then you look in the midfield, Home came in for a few games, looks alright, totally out of the picture now. Iwata comes in, looks alright, albeit he got injured, but he's been fit for a couple of weeks now, and as I said, Disney got a look in after the bench at the weekend when it's exactly his game. So for me, as I say, Iwata should be in the team. I would have said that for once, but I think if Iwata is in the team, similar to what you're saying with James Forrest as well, it's just desperation. It is sheer desperation. For me, it screams a desperation. There isn't a plan. We should have it's February. We still don't know what the best team is. It's February. It was nearly March. We still don't know our best team, and we're still looking to kickstart our season. At what point are we just going to say, this isn't happening? And Rocco Vata's another one. We were in contract talks with him. He was flavour of the month, getting after bench week in, week out. That's died a death, and he doesn't seem to make squads anymore. The Scales thing as well. Look, I know they were talking about scapegoats regards Bernabe. For me, Liam Scales is the biggest scapegoat in that team. I don't think there is a person that would disagree that Liam Scales is probably second on the list for our Player of the Year award this year. Anytime we have a bad result, it's Liam Scales that gets slaughtered. And look, Liam Scales' distribution is terrible, but Liam Scales' distribution has been terrible all season. It shouldn't be a centre-half's job to play as an attacking midfielder. It was like when we signed Shane Duffy. Shane Duffy, fucking tackle your granny, but we're trying to get him to play football and dribble the ball across the halfway line. Sign a player. If you don't think Liam Scales is that player, which he clearly isn't, his qualities lie elsewhere in the defensive side of it, but don't ask him to be the one to carry the ball out. Make it be Carter Vickers. Make it be Welsh. Nawrocki is arguably, for what we've seen, passing the ball through the eye of a needle. Sometimes you'll shite yourself when he does it, but more often than not, it was coming off. And for me, as I say, it just screams of desperation. And actually, it's weird to see you feel sorry for Scales when you say that you think that Mace would have him second in the list. But in this season, it's probably no that great praise. But for me, as I say, Liam Scales' distribution isn't great. We know it's not great. It's never been great. He's not that player. So why do we persist in asking him to do it? That again, that falls in the manager, similar to what I said with the wingers. But in terms of the team, what I would be an eye, but I don't expect much a change elsewhere, to be honest.
Willie, can I ask you a question on the back of James, just to get you involved? So, if we've got all our centre backs fit, would you play Cameron Carter-Vickers with Rocky? Rocky, who's good with distribution, he's happy to take the risky passes to split the lines. Cameron Carter-Vickers, who obviously provides solidity, and he's actually good at passing, but he's not going to push up into the opposition park. So would you drop Scales to accommodate Nawrocki and Cameron Carter-Vickers, or would you stick with Scales and risk the season with it?
I personally would stick with Scales. I think he's been excellent this season, and for me, I think you've got plenty. They've not showed it this season so far, but there's plenty of creativity on the park that should be doing that job. And I think that from what I've seen for Nawrocki so far this season, he's had quite a lot of bomb scare moments. And for me, first and foremost, I want my defender to defend. And I don't think anybody can argue Scales has been head and shoulders above everybody in our squad when it comes to that. So for me, I would stick with Scales. And like you, Gavin, I've loved seeing a sort of left-sided centre half on that left-hand side as well. I would like to see more of Rocky because I think it's a bit harsh for what I'm saying. And I don't know, like you said earlier about I trust the gaffer and what he sees in training, and there's a £5 million defender came in and he can't get a game ahead of Stephen Welsh. What does that say? I think that speaks volumes, and I think it'd be really harsh on Scales if he was dropped personally.
Can I say one other thing? And I'm sorry for holding.
No, of course, no, not at all.
Look, we are struggling for creativity. I watched the Celtic by Numbers podcast, I think, where they do a lot of statistical analysis, and they spoke about a quote from Marcelo Bielsa, and Marcelo Bielsa said that if you're struggling to create chances, then what he looks at is his defenders, not the attacking players. Now, I disagree with James about Scales' distribution, where the onus should be on the midfielders, but we acknowledge Calmac got marked out the game against Kilmarnock, and we had no response for that. We need to be more innovative than relying on him to kind of spark movement, to kind of spark an attack. It needs to come from the centre-backs. There's so much responsibility right now. I think we're kind of sleeping on the responsibility of the centre-backs. So much is demanded from them. And because we are getting the lion's share of possession and teams are just happy to sit back against us, more so at Parkhead. So I think with Scales right now, and everybody as a result of this kind of slump in confidence, people are not afraid to take responsibility, to take ownership, take the game by the scruff of the neck. Now, if our centre-backs are doing that, then how on earth are we going to be able to distribute the ball to the players who need the ball? I think it needs to start with the centre-backs. And if Scales, he's had a great start to the season, but right now he's not doing it. And I think we need to put aside the sentimentality of how great he's done. Yeah, he'll probably get a renewed contract at the end of the season, but right now we need to spark a change. And if we're going to continue with Scales, then I think that we need to resign ourselves to second place. I would put Nawrocki in with Cameron Carter-Vickers. That's how they started the season. Let's finish it like that and see what happens. Nawrocki is happy to play those riskier passes to break the lines, not just pass it to Kalmak and say, go, let's do something. Start him, start Nawrocki ahead of Scales, bring back Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's now fit. I think AJ will be available for the Motherwell game. I know that we'll go into that for our kind of lineup, but do that, because if we've got no creativity, no bravery in the centre backs, then everybody else will suffer. We've got 12 games to rescue this season. If you deliberate any more on that particular decision, then I think we'll suffer the consequences.
It's a fair point. I mean, Brendan's that is Brendan's style. He likes a ball playing defender that kind of brings it forward. So you're making a fair point. And Michael Ross totally agrees with you. So you've at least got one more on your side. But Scales will be loving the fact Greg Taylor's back, so that he's not the whipping boy anymore, because Gregory's back, so he'll be starting getting pelters again. Some good points made, but we're going to move on. And the sort of news that was broke yesterday, I think it was, and our number one, our keeper Joe Hart's announced his retirement at the end of the season. James, in fact, I think I've got a quote for what he said, because I think he sort of needed to say this anyway, but he sort of said, to everybody at Celtic, this message is for clarification and so we can all move together on the same page. I'll do my best to express what your amazing club means to me once this season concludes, and I'll share how honoured I am to have represented it for 3 years. Until then, I'll give my all to ensure a successful finish this season with you. Thank you for your unwavering support. Now, before we go on and talk about, like, you know, the sort of impact he's made, or the sort of negative impact he's made in some people's eyes, probably, since he's came to the club, what do you feel about the timing of the announcement? I thought it was a bit of a strange one. How did you feel about it? He's obviously going to have to now come out and make that statement, how he's going to give his all for the club and all the rest of it. But I mean, that sort of could have been kept in house till the end of the season, and they needed to sort of make that statement. What do you feel about the timing of it all?
Oh, again, the cynic in me. To me, he's come out and said it, but again, it just screams absolutely no forward planning. Again, we're going to have to be reactive. So there's an element of, look, we have spoke about it. We spoke about it on here. I know obviously he was out of contract in the summer, but it was just kind of assumed, well, for me personally, I assumed he would maybe move on to America or possibly even Saudi Arabia, because I think he gets a club out there just in name value alone, if nothing else. And look, yeah. Joe Hart's been our best player since we've come back. Since we come back for the winter break. But as I say, on name value, I think he gets a contract there for a year or two. The fact he's coming out now and telling us, I mean, as I say, the cynic in me tells us he knows it's something that we're talking about, and he's just wanting it to put us at ease, which again, for me, maybe I'm just a fucking torn-faced cunt, but it doesn't reflect great on the board. Again, all the recruitment side of it. I personally wanted Joe Hart replaced last summer.
I think he was going to be, to be fair though, I think he was always going to be replaced this summer, wasn't he?
Aye, definitely. But I mean, in terms of there isn't the option there now, like Rangers did with Alan McGregor, just to go, all right, well, we're kind of struggling here, going to sign on for another year. That option is now, well, to be fair, maybe it hasn't. He could always change his mind, but for outside looking at, that option is totally now gone, which screams, as I say, a lack of forward planning. We're going to be reactive again, but that's my take on it in terms of his announcement. But in terms of the guy himself, I mean, he's been as much as I've maybe criticised him this season in the first half of the season, overall, he's been a great signing. You think about the guy he's replaced in Barkas, it's absolutely night and day. Fantastic signing, and a really, really likeable guy. He comes across well in all his interviews, and if you said that to me, 4 years ago, I would have never have believed you, because I always thought he came across as a bit of a dick, to be honest, in the interviews he'd done. But he's totally changed my opinion on him. He's a really, really likeable guy. And as I say, he's been a great signing. I wish him all the best. But as I say, boardroom level again, for me, it's just reactionary.
Yeah, Gavin, your thoughts on Joe Hart, and especially the sort of the timing of the announcement. I mean, and to be fair, what James is saying there, I know you say you sort of get a lot of previous players or managers to an extent saying certain things, sort of to get the fans on side and quoting certain, famous sayings for Celtic folklore and all the rest of it to get them aside. But I truly believe everything that Joe Hart says when he talks about the club and his love for them. And I think he's yet another one that I don't think he realised how big we were and until he came up here. I think he's been a fantastic representative for the club. A great leader in the dressing room. I feel that we're going to lose. But what's your thoughts on Joe Hart's term at the club? What do you think we're going to sort of miss when he does go? That sort of leadership, maybe, and also this. The biggest thing for me is just the sort of timing of the announcement.
Yeah, the timing. So he said in his interview that he did it. I'm paraphrasing, to kind of stop the kind of the chatter. He said that obviously people knew that his contract was coming up at the end of the season, so people were obviously going to be talking about the goalkeeping situation. So he's kind of announced it now to give clarity that he will be leaving. Which I think from our perspective, from when we're talking about things like this on a podcast, it's good to know that. It's good to know what situation we will be in come the end of the season. I think if I was reading between the lines in his interview, I think that if the Celtic board had offered him a new contract, then he would have been open to that. But what he has said is that he has no intention of joining a new club. So I took from that if he never had the contract extension from Celtic, then he was just going to call it quits.
Yep.
And there's something really, really kind of nice. I should really try and come up with a better word for that. But something really kind of nice about being able to kind of end your career on your own terms. Like some people, so many people in football have continued until their body shuts down. It makes me think of like Eric Cantona, who quit football at the age of like 30 or 31 at Man U when he was still maybe just slightly past his prime, but it was a surprise to everybody, and he did it on his own terms. Joe Hart, for 36 years old, I think whenever his contract ends he'll be 37, but he said that he's still in physically really, really good shape, and it's quite nice, quite refreshing to hear a professional footballer be in charge, be in control of their own destiny, and that's what he's done. In terms of what it's going to leave us with, a massive, massive void in terms of leadership. I said that in the group chat with you guys yesterday, with the change, whenever Ange took charge of our club, with all the changes that he had to make, with the turnover that he faced, it was a massive, massive turnover, and the style of play that he was trying to implement, it would have been so much harder for him to achieve what he achieved in those 2 years without the leadership of Joe Hart. The likes of him, Greg Taylor, Cal McGregor, gave him a platform to implement those changes. I know that I know that Joe Hart will have a lot of detractors, and I was vocal in his criticism as well to an extent, but what he lacked in, he made up for in leadership in terms of being vocal, being able to talk to his defence. He was a great shot stopper as well, I felt, despite his age. By the way, this season has really, really rankled me that he seems afraid of catching the ball. He always seems intent on punching it, and it's made me think, has he always been like that in his career? Has it always been afraid to catch the ball? Does he not have confidence to be able to do that. Like, I think that's like a very, very basic skill for a goalkeeper. That's annoyed me. But on the whole, he's been a fantastic servant for Celtic. It really, really has. And I guess that's one thing that I'm aware of now come this summer. I think we've already got a rebuild in our hands. Ange's team, for one reason or another, it's no longer working. And now Hart has left as well. So we need to get a new goalkeeper. And the harrowing thing is that we've learned, we've spent 5 million in Barkas, and Christ almighty, I know that the COVID year was really, really bad. It kind of hampered him, but Christ, 5 million in a goalkeeper, you think you're going to have a sure thing, and it's been opposite. And then we spend 1 million in Joe Hart, and we have what he had. You know, he's a treble winner. He can leave with his head held high. I was going to finish off with one other point, which I think I might have forgotten. Yeah, I've probably forgotten that point. I think it was a good point. I've forgotten it now. So I'm just going to
just doing a Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, I totally echo that. I've always been a big Joe Hart fan since he came in. I think he's been, like you said, he's been fantastic for the club. I think he's a wonderful representative. I don't know what his plans are afterwards, but like if there was a sort of coaching capacity with his leadership skills, I think that would be, you know, great for the club. Yeah, all the best. I really hope that we can get a couple of trophies for him, and he leaves, he finishes his career on a high. We're going to go on to next. Whatever. Oh, you've got it. He's got it.
And this was what I was going to ask. Okay, so childlike enthusiasm here. Out of all the goalkeepers in your lifetime as a Celtic fan, apart from Boric, apart from Foster, who's the third best?
Apart from the good ones.
Aye, it's no fucking Barkas Poppadom hands anyway. Hart's right up there. Who we got?
Jonathan Gould, Craig Gordon.
Gordon, aye. It's Hart or Gordon. It's tough to say between the two, but we've had some absolute shockers, haven't we, in the last 30, 40 years? Absolute shockers. So
that annoys me. See, whenever you compare us to our closest rivals,
yeah,
they always kind of valued goalkeeper as a position.
Yeah.
Well, you had to get it right. And I think that we just gambled too much.
There's another point. They didn't know Kloss and Yemi was on the bench for them at one point.
Yeah.
Like that's like speaks volumes. They're both better than like most of the keepers we've had the past 30 years.
But he's finished, isn't he?
I know. Well, I don't know how he's not been called up for Scotland. He's not finished.
No, but funnily enough, fucking fun of a batch of old pictures, and it was my first game. Fucking was it 97? It was, and it was Gordon Marshall on the front cover of the programme for that day. But it put me in mind the picture. Was it Shea Given, Brad Friedel, Stuart Kerr, and Gordon Marshall? I think there might have been another one as well. But the ones that we signed were Stuart Kerr and Gordon Marshall, and let Shea Given and Brad Friedel go.
So Brad Friedel,
aye,
he was on our books.
Aye, he's a boy. There's a picture going about. I think there might be a fifth goalie in it. I could be talking nonsense. It might just be they four. But the two that we signed, it must have been the same time as Shea Given. The two that we signed was Stuart Kerr and Gordon Marshall.
Oh, here's a shout here. Punch McNuggets comment tonight. Best keeper outside the guys you named, Connor Goldson. Well done, Punch. Right, let's move on to what everybody's probably want to talk about. Even though we've been talking about other subjects, it's been going on in the chat, and that is your sort of announcements today. The sort of interim profits. Gavin, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to read a couple of these out. Sort of stuff I've screenshotted to say. I've not actually seen like Lawwell's. I don't know if there is a video interview of him or whatever. I've not seen any yet because I've been busy today, but I'm just going to read out these things. So Celtic have revealed that they have 67 million in the bank in their interim PLC report for the 6 months ending in December 2023. The Parkhead side also made a pre-tax profit of 32 million, with revenue rising from 76.5 million last year to 85.2 million this year. Now, this is from Lawwell himself, I believe. Since the opening of the transfer window in June 2023 and up to the end of the winter transfer window, which closed on the 1st of February 2024, we have committed 23.9 million in player investment. This is a bit that James loves. Within this, we renewed and extended the contracts of Cameron Carter-Vickers, Liel Abada, Matt O'Reilly, Anthony Ralston, and Rio Hatate. So that's these renewals are included in the player investment. The board's commitment is to strengthen and improve the playing squad in every transfer window. And although resources were available, we were unable to further add to the squad due to the unavailability of identified targets. This was disappointing to us all and never the intention. The January transfer window is notoriously difficult as clubs are very reluctant to let their best players go at such a crucial time of the season, just as we are. Indeed, we resisted strong interest in our players from other clubs. It is notable that transfer activity in England was the lowest it has been for over 10 years. James loves this. Excluding the impact of COVID-19, a number of reasons have been cited for this, including the absence of suitable players and now UEFA regulations which impose spending caps. What do you make of that, Gavin?
I'm not surprised. There was rumours before that we were going to announce like a cash of up to like 90 odd million. It does nothing to alleviate the dissent from the Celtic fans. End of the day, we still have money in the bank, and we're not utilising it. I do actually agree with him to an extent about the January transfer window. But really, if you were expecting 4 quality signings in January, then fuck me. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll bill in a minute.
But
what do you make of him? See how he said that? Like he's pretty much saying the money was there to spend, but we didn't because whatever targets were. Is that him having a go at a recruitment team then?
I don't think it is. If you have identified, if you've done your homework and you said, for us to realistically either consolidate or go to the next level, these are the types of players that we want to buy. So these are your positions, and we've got whatever 3 players for each of these positions. These are the guys that you want. And if they're not available in the January transfer window, then what you meant to do? You're going to throw another 10 million. You're going to double the price to make the selling club sell the asset. That's poor finance. So I don't think he's throwing his son under a bus. I think he's given a bit of truth to the matter. Look, I'm not a supporter of the Lawwells, but you were genuinely thinking that we were going to bring in 4 quality players in January. I think that's too gullible. So no, I don't think he was throwing his son under a bus there.
No.
I mean, did you know, just listen to what Willie read out? We signed O'Reilly, Hatate, fucking Ralston and Leah Labada. They all came in January, Gav. That's 4 quality players right there. I mean, honestly, see with that statement, where do you even start with it? I don't think he's threw his son under a bus. I think he's threw him under a fucking Arctic lorry. I mean, the thing about players, I can't remember the exact quote, but when he's talking about recruiting players and players not being available, how long have we heard about, we've got a list, if he's not available, we'll move on to the next one. If he's not available, we'll move on to the next one. Oh, Gav's on hosting duty. Nah, but we've heard if he's not available, we'll move on to the next one. If the next one's not available, we'll move on to the third in the list. You know, for me, and I think I actually kind of say that a few weeks ago, the Owen Beck thing in January just highlights how I think we operate now. We were linked with the Portuguese guy whose name I have just forgotten, Araujo. We were linked with him prior to the window opening, and then apparently it transpired that basically we'd been priced out a move before the window had even opened. So that was never on the table. As I said previously, this Owen Beck fell into our lap in the first half of the season on loan at Dundee. He then goes back to Liverpool. We're linked to him, trying to get him in the door. He plays a game for Liverpool. It becomes impossible for us to sign him. That happened a good week or so before the window shut. I felt it was nigh on impossible for us not to sign a left back in January. For us not to sign a left back in January. Taylor then gets injured. At the point when Taylor gets injured, if we don't sign a left back, then it's sheer negligence not to sign a left back, as we went on to see with Bernaby's attempts at playing. But the Owen Beck thing, it was the only real left back throughout the full window that we were linked with. So I genuinely, and I don't say this to be dramatic, I genuinely think we identify a position that we want to sign, and then we'll identify one player, and we'll scout that one player and go for him. If he doesn't want to come, then that's us up shit creek without a paddle. Again, the Chris Garden guy for Brøndby is arguably another one. He was really the only striker we were seriously linked with. I think the Miofsky and the Shanklin stuff was maybe just mere rumours and supporter talk, but there seemed to be Chris Garden was the name that wouldn't go away throughout the full window. That then doesn't happen, and then it's like, right, we need a striker. There's an Irish guy that's not getting a game in the Championship. We'll bring him in. And again, that was exactly obviously what happened. The player contracts thing, what was it, £24 million or 23 point whatever million pounds that we've spent on player transfers, recruitment, however they've worded it. Absolute bullshit. Absolute nonsense. Matt O'Reilly is going to be away in the summer for even more profit to go on the balance sheet. Leah Labada is going to be away probably in the summer, if no sooner. So that's even more profit to be added on. The Ralston thing is even up for debate if he should have been offered a contract. What is this? 100%. 100%. The recruitment is a shambles, and it's obviously sheer nepotism that's led us to this point. But it's a shambles, it's laziness, whatever you want to call it, it's non-existent. And then it gets to the end, and you've got fucking all the excuses of the day about teams in England. Somebody want to have a wee word with them and tell them, firstly, we don't play in England. Secondly, the chances of getting in and signing these quality players for the Premier League is nigh on impossible to non-existent, considering the budgets that we'd be shot in. I mean, they're talking about the English market, and we're signing a guy that can't get a game in the Championship. So it's just absolute excuses. The English market, I get it potentially could have a slight knock-on effect, but it's not an excuse. You can't no sign a player and then go, Man City never signed anybody, so what can we do? It's absolute fucking excuses galore. We must be the only club in the world that we can sit as a support and know we've got tens and tens of millions of pounds in the bank, and then in the run-up to the figures coming out, you hear like that, well, they're going to need to try and make it look like we're spending money on something. Fuck, Jerry, get Jerry on the phone. Jerry, go and stick that fucking drone up at that building site, and we'll stick a wee video the day before it comes out. You can't tell me that isn't timed to perfection for that exact reasoning. The Joe Hart thing, the cynic in me, is it a deflection tactic? And there can't be another club on the planet that will announce financial results and say, we wanted to sign players, but it's hard, innit? And my son's in charge of the recruitment, but we did struggle, and we did try, but Man City didn't sign anybody, Man United didn't sign anybody, Liverpool didn't spend as much money as they normally did. Absolute nonsense, man. Literally, from start to finish, it is just bullshit. Just come out and say, we've not got any money, we've made an arse of it, we'll try and get better in the summer. That is literally, you'd have so much more respect for it.
James, look, at risk of being so unpopular in the comments, from my perspective, see with the January kind of transfer targets, like you're talking about a left back with Owen Beck. Now, I've never even watched a YouTube clip of Owen Beck, but say Owen Beck is not what Brendan Rodgers wants, Say that he really wanted X, Y, and Z, but say it's true that we identified targets, the proper targets who would make us better, but we just couldn't get them because it's January and nobody wants to sell good players in January. Do you not buy that for a second, or are you beyond accepting that?
Nobody wanted to sell good players in the summer. The recruitment in the summer was fucking horrendous. We needed a left back in the summer.
Right, put the summer to the side. January, okay. We made an arse of it. I am totally with you about the summer. We made an arse of it in the summer. But it comes to January, we want to get players who are going to be better than us. So somebody made a comment like, what would have been better? To not sign the players because we can't get the quality that we really, really want, or just signing more mediocre players to appease some fans? What if we brought in a left back who we would have been like, fuck yeah, this guy's better than Bernaby, but he's still not better than Taylor? Like, what would you rather? Are you beyond thinking that is actually a truthful that segment? I've not read the full thing about Peter Lawwell. Okay, I was only aware of this statement just before we went live. But the thing about the January transfer window, like, that's my point.
No, look, even the O'Reilly thing, and look, I don't disagree with it necessarily, but see, to put that O'Reilly thing on a statement that we've put our name to come out and say, we rejected big offers. You didn't. You rejected a loan offer in the money in the summer. You're still going to get the money in the summer. And see, regards what you're saying, look, I agree. January will be a difficult. Well, it'll be more difficult to sign players than in the summer. I 100% agree with that. But it's no an excuse not to sign them. Look, the Miovski thing, and I know it was rumours, but the Miovski thing, the rumour was they wanted, what was it, 4.5 or 5 million. Now, if the option was get Adam Eden in a 6-month loan, he'll score a couple of penalties, but apart from that, he'll not really do much else, if we're being totally honest. Or go out and sign a guy that's proven quality in the league that we are trying to win, but it will maybe cost you 4.5, 5 million. But it's sound because we've got fucking X amount of million in the bank and we're going to get made in the summer through player sales. Go out and sign Miovski then. Anything else is just an excuse. You cannot.
See with that though, James, do you not think that, because everybody was screaming about Champions League quality in the summer, and for me, I would want somebody that's going to come in and challenge Kyogo, and Miovski wasn't that for me. But obviously, since then, he's been setting the league alight and all that, and I do agree he would have done a job at us. But do you not think that, for the Celtics' point of view, then they're thinking in the summer that they want to try and get a top player that challenges Kyogo? Why would I spend money on Miovski for 6 months when I can get? Well, that's obviously why they've got Ida, because there's no an option to buy. They've obviously just got him in to get us to the summer before, because summer is going to be a massive turnover in the squad.
100%, but it didn't need to be that way. And look, I don't say this with the benefit of hindsight. The recruitment in the summer was shite. We didn't need to, what was it, 10 or 12 players or something we signed. We didn't need to sign that many players. The team had just won a treble. We lost the manager, of course that's a massive impact. We lose Jota, our most creative player, of course that's going to have an impact. But I mean, I feel as if I'm going to go blue in the face saying it. Just go out and sign a player for £6 or £7 million. Recent history shows you get what you pay for. Barkas and Ayeti, I know, is a name that's going to get flung out. But for £1 million more, you're getting Carter Vickers or Jota. A few years ago, we signed Christopher Julian for, what was it, £7 million. We signed Eddie for £9 million. They were all good signings, and I know they were on loan, so it's slightly different. Maybe that's something we can look into a wee bit more. Yeah. But to go out in the summer, and as I say, I don't say this with the benefit of hindsight, because I think we would all agree at the time, we replaced Jota with Tilio, Palma, and somebody else that I'm missing, Yang. I mean, I know I've defended Palma earlier, but he's nowhere near. You could combine the three of them and be nowhere near Jota's level.
See that though, mate. See, my argument against that is, like, is that panic in January? And because, see, for me personally, I don't know about you, but if Beck and Miovski with 2 guys coming in the summer, I would be massively underwhelmed with these 2 signings.
100%, and so would I. But in the summer, you've got the Champions League to go. You look to kick on in Europe. Come January, we aren't in the Champions League, and we're no 1 million points clear in the league. Obviously, we had a lead at that point, but we knew we were in a title race. So the notion of signing players for the Champions League, when you haven't done it the summer before, when you should have done it, is then even more pie in the sky. In January, just sign players that's going to get you over the line in the league. Then we can revisit it again in the summer. As I say, the recruitment.
Aye, but from a business point of view, you're not going to spend 5 million on a player just to punt him again 6 months later for less money.
But fucking Paul Hartley and Barry Robson weren't available this winter. Really, we couldn't do that. We couldn't just sign players who were good enough to get us over the line for this title.
So you're saying if we went out and signed Miovski, you don't think bringing in Bojan Miovski for 4 or 5 million would be a better signing than bringing in Adam Ida in a 6-month loan?
Right, you bring in Miovski is a better player than Ida. However, you're shelling out 4.5 million for him.
Shelling out tens of million in the bank.
Right, okay, so what you're going to do, you're going to drop Kyogo, our top goal scorer, for Miovski.
You've just said that you think Miovski's a better player than Ida. We brought in Ida and dropped Kyogo. Kyogo does not suit Rodgers' style.
That represents such a big signing. 4.5 million plus the wages for that player. We're going to give him a 5.5 contract because that's what.
How does that represent a big signing? It's £1 million more than
financial investment. It represents a big financial investment.
It's £1 million more than we signed Kuhn for on a 5.5-year deal.
It's a different. We needed wingers. Okay, that was just a bad signing. But are you going to spend 4.5 million for a guy who's not going to be your first choice striker? That's what I don't get. Kyogo's a better player than Miovski for your centre forward.
I don't get your logic, honestly. Because we brought in Maida and Maida's... Ida.
Just to recap, I wouldn't spend 4.5 million on a player who's going to sit on the bench as the understudy for Kyogo. I wouldn't do that. I don't think that gets us over the line for the title.
How many games has Ida... So we signed Ida in January. How many games has Ida missed since he signed?
Ida's been a terrible solution.
But how many games has he missed since he signed?
None.
Right, so there's my argument. If you can't,
but we all thought Ida was going to be obviously always away. Well, always nowhere near good enough anyway. But always away at the Asian Cup. Everybody's screaming, we just need a striker. Because nobody's going to dislodge Kyogo in the first team.
Why?
We're just going to bring it because we're not going to get.
Do you think Kyogo's been undroppable this season?
I mean, he's obviously not been firing all cylinders, but he's still got a decent goal return. And there's no way
Dessers has scored more than Kyogo. Would you take
there's no way Miovski's getting in that team before Kyogo, for me. And all we've done is, so what you're saying is you're going to get these guys in, but you're going to get better quality in, and then we're going to have to punt them in 6 months, but it's fine because we've got cash in the bank.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. But
that's what you said. He said Miovski's got to come in and he's not good enough, and you said, but we've got cash in the bank so we can spend it.
Right.
But that's why we're in the situation we're in. We've got 100 wingers because we've got 100 wingers. None of them are good enough to get in the squad, and we're going to punt them all, and we're just clogging up this squad. We've got far too many bang average players, and I think Miovski's bang average. I think he would have done a job for us. But I think if we're going to spend money for him for 6 months to just punt him again...
But we weren't spending money on him for 6 months. Were we spending money on Kuhn for 6 months, or was it a 5.5-year contract?
Yeah, well, but if I knew... If Kuhn was playing in the league and I seen what he was doing and I would say he's garbage, then I would disagree with that as well.
I honestly, I don't know if I'm being thick, but I really don't get your argument. I don't get how you can tell me that you openly admit that Miovski is a better player than Adam Ida, which... I think we would all agree on.
Aye, but if we got Miovski on loan for 6 months without paying a penny for him and just paying his wages, then I would have went, fucking let's do it, 100%. And he's gone back to his club in 6 months.
Right. You're defending the summer recruitment as I say, in the summer, you're in the Champions League.
No, I'm talking about the January.
Champions League players,
January.
right?
Aye.
No,
in the summer, we should have signed Champions League quality players. Majovski's not that, though.
Right, 100%. So that is my point, right? So come January, you're in a dogfight for the title race. Just get it over the line. Sign Majovski for $4.5 million. If Majovski comes in and scores 10 goals and you've got a 60 million bout at the end of it, do you think we'd all be sitting saying, fucking $4.5 million for Majovski and he's only come in and won his league? Of course you wouldn't. That's not how football works. We've signed Kuhn for $3.5 million in a 5.5 year contract, and not one person has made that same argument that you're making as I'm saying for Majovski. No, no saying it new, but I mean at the time it just does not make any sense. No signing is a guarantee of success.
Agreed.
So I honestly don't get it. You're saying about Owen away, but Ove was away if we signed Majovski as well. And I get what you're saying. I'm not saying sign Majovski for 6 months, but I mean I think there's every possibility we could revisit the Majovski thing in the summer and sign him.
Hey, so you're saying, okay, just to kind of bring it back, you're saying that because we're up shit creek without a paddle right now, we should have given Aberdeen whatever money that they wanted to sign Majovski, to hopefully, as a gamble, to win the league. And then we address it in the summer. And if he's not good enough for us, then he goes back to being second fiddle and we bring in a better striker. Just to win the league, we make that gamble financially.
Aye. I mean, without sounding like an arsehole, or we know a Fitbit team. Who gives a fuck about the balance sheet? The balance sheet is profit. We know it's profit. So why not spend the money, win the league, 60 million bounty and everything that comes with it? But we didn't do that in the summer, and then it gets to January. We're in a hole, as I say. I know we were still ahead at the time, but I think everybody knew we were in a title race. So why would you then spend to look to get over the line to get the 60 million bounty at the end of the season? And regardless of even the 60 million bounty, just in terms of it was what we needed. I mean, it's the same with the left back scenario. If we signed a left back, you're still going to have 3 left backs in the book. You can only play one. But it's just so happens that we needed that improvement in there. If we signed Owen Beck, is Owen Beck a better player than Greg Taylor? I don't know. But we needed a left back. I don't know if we just to sign loan players in January, or the players that we do sign don't get a contract. I honestly don't get your argument.
To be honest, on reflection, when I think about it, James, I do see your point. I do see your point. I guess 2 things which make me kind of hesitant about that is, see, whenever we really needed a win against the Huns this season, it was Kyogo, and he was the man in the moment who had 2 amazing strikes against the Huns, and he was the difference between us two at Ibrox and at Parkhead. Brilliant strikes. I don't know if Majovski could do that, but when I think about your point, pardon me?
He has. He scored against Celtic and Rangers within a week of each other this season.
Aye. I just think that, well, perhaps although we can beat Rangers, one thing that we do struggle is playing against everybody else. And maybe Majovski could have been a difference maker. Even Shankland could have been a difference maker for that. The other thing that just makes me hesitant about buying people for the short term is the fact that we've got a list as long as your arm about players that we've got on our books that we're trying to get rid of who we know are not Celtic quality.
Right, can I just come back, right? And I know we're getting hung up on the Majovski thing. See, come the summer, in my opinion, we've got I wouldn't say major, but we've got quite a substantial rebuild on our hands. See, if we had recruited as we should last summer and then in January, that substantial rebuild wouldn't be there. Now, we need a goalkeeper. Hart's retiring. I think we needed a goalkeeper last summer. We need a left back because Burnley clearly can't cut it, and I personally think we can get better than Greg Taylor and the money that we'd be looking to spend. If Lagerbielke goes, if he doesn't fancy Nawrocki, there's every chance we might need another centre half. Tony Ralston, I'm gone absolute worst case scenario, but I'd be looking for better than Ralston. You could argue that we might need better than Johnson after the back of what we've seen this season. We're not going to be spending $6 million on Bernardo because he's no worth it. So we're going to need another central midfielder. You've already said that you don't think Iwata is the answer long term, so you could state a case that we need another 2 central midfielders. Ida's going back to Norwich, so we're going to need another striker in the summer regardless. And we've all sat and acknowledged all night that the wingers aren't good enough, so you could state a very good case that we're going to need 2 wingers. As I say, that's coming at it for a total glass empty, worst case scenario view. But in my head, so many of that, or so much of that, could have been negated over the last 2 transfer windows where we've just totally ignored it and sleptwalk into the position of winning a treble and then 12 months later facing quite a substantial rebuild. Mate, it feels as if we're a ball here away for getting Beaton on the phone to come in and play centre half for the Champions League games. I don't understand. I just don't understand how you can defend anything a day with recruitment.
No, I'm not defending anything with the recruitment. I just for me, like I said, I just feel like, and I totally understand what you're saying. When we want to win this league, we should be buying these players, and I do think Majowski would have came in, and I think he probably would have done a job for us. But for me, and I understand the situation when you're talking about that, I just look at the summer and think, like I said, if Majowski or somebody that was coming in, I'd have been really underwhelmed. And I'm wanting players to come in that are going to challenge for a shot. And personally, I just don't believe that Majowski could challenge for that number 9 shot. That shot up front. I just don't think he's a required quality. As much as I totally agree with you, him coming in would have given us a massive boost, and if it's a choice between him and Ida, 100% Majowski all day, every day, twice on Sundays.
But I think that's where I'm getting lost in this argument, because you're telling me that you think Majowski's a better player than Adam Ida. Adam Ida's played every game since he came in, but you're telling me Majowski wouldn't get a game for Celtic. How does that make sense?
Because I'm not picking the team. I wouldn't pick Ida every game for Celtic.
I think Ida's the wrong solution. At the same time, we're not giving the service to Kyogo. Do you think? Look, you really do make a lot of good points, because I think the majority of people in the viewers here agree with you, James. Okay, so that's to your credit. See, if we had to spend upwards to $6 million on Majowski, but the following season we realised he's not good enough to be our main centre forward for Celtic, is that money well spent?
But is that not literally the exact same as we've done in the summer? We've spent $5 million on Nawrocki.
I know, but none of us are defending the summer window. That's the problem. So we're not, like, the summer window's been a disaster.
It's about repeating the same mistakes.
So that's exact same. If we did that in January, it's exact same as the summer window.
But I honestly, I don't understand what you mean, because would you not say the exact same if you signed a guy on a free? You need to give players contracts. You can't have a squad full of loan players.
No, agreed, but they need to be good enough. Ida's not.
Right, but
I'm not picking the team. I wouldn't hear him starting. I wouldn't hear Ida starting.
So we've spent $8.5 million on 2 guys that can't get a team, 2 guys that can't get in the team, over 2 guys that were already here and no getting a game.
So it's been another shocker of a window. I'm not defending that.
Because of that, we don't sign Majowski in January. Honestly, I'm not even trying to be a dick. I just don't follow the argument.
It's not because of that. Like, they've obviously not improved the team. I'm not defending that. If we could turn back time, bit of share in there. If we could turn back time, I wouldn't have signed either of the 2 players. I'm not defending that. But in the same token, I don't think Majowski would have improved the first 11 either. So it's been shocking as a whole. I'm not defending Ida signing. I'm not defending Kuhn signing. So it's the exact same token.
So I don't get it, mate. Honestly, I don't get how you can sit and watch Majowski score at Parkhead. Oh, sorry, Pittodrie. Score against Celtic, score against Rangers, score umpteen goals this season. Look, I'm not saying Majowski's a better player than Kyogo. That I don't know if that's maybe getting lost. I think Kyogo's by far the better player. But does he fit Rodgers' style? No, he doesn't, if we're being totally honest, and we've seen
Do
that.
you think Majowski fits
Yes.
Rodgers' style? Do you think he's got the pace?
I don't think. Well, I don't think pace is the main thing that he looks
Do
for.
you remember Chris Killen?
There is Scotland then.
You remember Chris Killen scored about 26 goals for Hibs?
Aye.
Right.
And we signed him, and he was dross.
Do you remember Scott McDonald scored all the goals for Motherwell when we signed him and he was excellent? Every signing comes with risk. I get your point. Nadir Chifchi as well was shite, but that was a wee bit different because his record was never as good. But
I think the thing is, mate, I think is in the summer.
Do you believe in life after love?
That's it. No matter how hard I try, you keep pushing me away and I can't hold back.
Oh, this needs to be a new thing in our group chat where we hate to get song titles into all these podcasts now. We're going to hate to fire that in. That's going to hate to happen. We'll just pick an artist each week and see how many song titles we can get in. I think the thing is, James, I totally agree with you. The sort of predicament.
No, you don't.
No, listen to me. The sort of predicament we're in. I totally agree that we needed to. Like, I can understand what you're saying about us having to do that to get over the line and win the league. All I'm trying to say is that, like, back in the summer window, I think we should be looking for better and we should be wanting to sign better than that. That's it. And it's obviously just not been the case.
I agree with that. I agree with that. The recruitment, basically, that whole argument there, I think the outcome of it is we all agree that the recruitment is shite.
Aye, that's it. That's totally it. I think for me, that's been 3 or 4 windows now. How many windows is it under this current recruitment team? Lowell was a chief scout and
4. It was either 4 or that was the 5th.
And they've all been pretty much a disaster. Everybody looks at it, if the results aren't happening on the pitch, the manager needs to go, whatever, all the rest of it. The recruitment has been shocking, and I think that needs to get looked at. And I think that's just been the biggest thing that I've noticed over the last few years. Everybody talks about the board and how we should have buried the team across the city and all the rest of it, but the recruitment's been absolutely shocking, and I think that's the bottom line. But at the same time, Rodgers should be getting more out of this squad as well. Most of these players we signed in the summer would walk into an Aberdeen, a Hibs, a Hearts, so we should be fucking beating them as well anyway. But never mind. Lots in the chat. Everybody's been talking about how the debate's been magic tonight. Lots and lots of love for everybody in the chat, so really appreciate it. Not as much love as Gavin's classic Argentina shirts getting the night. That's got the most love in the chat. More than anything else.
Maradona at the back.
Maradona in the back. Let's move on and let's discuss Sunday. We're away to Fir Park. How are we feeling about it? Are we going to be 1-0 up with half an hour to go and everybody's sitting with their arsehole going like like it has been the past few weeks, James? How are you feeling about the game?
Nah, I think we'll have Kyogo on his 10th by then. I'd honestly, I don't know, because see, at the same time, I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised, but I definitely would be surprised if we came out and romped it 4 or 5-0. But I don't know. I think we're in for maybe the same close, tetchy affair.
Aye. That Strangelove's exactly like me, James, here. I disagree with James entirely, but I get his position at the same time. Which is a ridiculous statement, but it's true. Gavin, how are you feeling about the upcoming game? Do you think we're a bit expecting Jekyll or Hyde?
Well, I would love to get some more Let's Share references in here, but do
you believe?
Really much do you believe? I think she's got one tune called "Strong Enough." Well, I think we are more confident playing away from home than at home right now, which is quite sad to see. Motherwell, I think, have actually had a bad run of form. I think they've had, in the last 3 games, I think they've had 2 defeats and 1 draw. But curiously enough, they've extended Kettlewell's contract by another 12 months.
Is that right?
That's funny. So for Sunday, I've got confidence that we'll win. However, I've got some radical changes that I would make. I would put Maida on the left wing, and as I mentioned it earlier on, which is maybe not the most ridiculous thing I've said tonight. I'm sure James would have an opinion on it, but I would maybe even start James Forrest on the right, Maida on the left, James Forrest on the right. Palmer, look, he's got obvious quality, but right now it's not working for him. Maybe bring him on as an impact sub. Kuhn, we saw it from the goal that we conceded in stoppage time. He never tracked back. That is a cardinal sin. Like, if you're not producing quality, fair enough, but give me 100%, give me effort, track your man. So I think Maida and Forrest, we can rely on them for having football intelligence. So I would do that, and I would put Idle on the bench and get Kyogo up front again. And for the midfield, yeah, Awata, McGregor, and O'Reilly. And let's fucking go for it.
So you're
And
not playing Miovski?
Drop skills for Nawrocki.
Oh, I thought you said Miovski there, Nawrocki. There's Hunter's share song where it's getting fired in the chat now, which I'm loving. James, what are you thinking about the squad? Do you think there's going to be big changes, or do you think it's going to be much the same?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I think it's the hardest one to predict. I think Awata will come back in. So I'd go Hart, Greg Taylor, Scales. Do you bring Carter Vickers back in, or do you leave it another week? I'd probably bring him back in. If no Carter Vickers or Nawrocki, if Vickers isn't fit enough. Right back, if I'm being honest, I was going to say I'll stick with Alston, but he didn't cover his selling glory last weekend. I'll probably stick with him just in case, because we seem to rush players back in the route for even longer. Don't know. Midfield will be Awata, McGregor, O'Reilly. Mate, there's a part of me that says, some just go Ida and Kyogo and just say, do what you want, because it's something we've not seen all season. But I think he'll go Palmer, Kyogo, and I actually think he'll bring in James Forrest as well, because the rest of them are hopeless, and I think he'll turn around to James Forrest and say, I got you, babe, you're back in the team, just go out there and
okay, yes, man.
So I think that will be the forward line: Forrest, Kyogo, and Palmer.
That's interesting. Neither of you think that they're going to go with Ida and Kyogo up top. Do you just think it's not worked?
I just think after back in the Kilmarnock game, as I say, look, me and you a couple of weeks ago, we sat on here and both strongly said that we needed Kyogo in the 10.
But we also did say that because we need to try something. We need to try something different. And he's tried it. It's maybe not worked.
Mm-hmm. And as I say, that's I'm not even trying to be funny when I say that. Like, that is the genuine thinking behind me saying, the wingers aren't great. They've not been great like the last wee while. Just stick Kyogo, Onida up front. Just say, go and do what you want. just for something a bit different, because regardless if it's Palmer, Forrest, Maida, it's going to be much of a muchness, really, isn't it? And they don't really do a lot, if we're being totally honest. But I think it will be Palmer. And in fact, no, because he hooked Palmer at half time. So would they start him the next game? I'd personally start him, but I don't know if we will. But
I think it's going to be interesting after that performance. It's going to be interesting to line up anyway. I think there might be a couple of surprises in there.
Yeah, yeah. If I could turn back time, I wouldn't have signed Kuhn. Put it that way.
I think personally he's got to start Kuhn and say, fucking look, we've spent money and you need to prove what you're doing here and go and fucking do something, because he's shown absolutely nothing in the time he's been here so far. But you got any score predictions? Are we confident in a win?
Yeah, I think 2-1, 3-1.
Yeah. To who? I think I said 1-0 on the predictor, and I think that's a win and a clean sheet. I think that's about as positive as I'm going to get tonight.
That is proper positive for you, to be fair.
I know.
There's Stephen saying, agreed with many of your points, but Kyle Garida, Tony Mowbray. I think we'll get the win as well, but I say that every week and it's not been fucking brilliant recently. But at least it's had fun tonight. I've really appreciated it. Really, really great debate. Everybody in the comments has been superb. Really enjoyed the debate. So I hope you have a good weekend, boys, and everybody in the chat. Hope you have a great weekend. Hopefully we're not sitting here misery again on Monday and there's a good result for the boys at Fir Park. All the best. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you Monday. Cheers. Hail, hail.
Cheers. Good night.